I sought peace, but didn't find it until love taught me what to be. Faith roamed relentlessly in the night until love pointed the way. No greater, more pure motive can a man have to find faith and peace than to love his wife and family. There's no greater restitution than love. It's God's journey of being set apart.
Thanks for joining us on Life Journeys, a podcast about thriving through the worst pain that life brings. With global initiatives threatening big changes to our way of life, we're going to need to activate Jesus' words about mountain-moving faith. Words That Work is the ongoing series on life journeys that is rooted in releasing revelational words of faith that will work every time and with everyone. It's about moving the mountains that keep us from the presence and goodness of God. It's about defining our life purpose and identity through encountering Him until we have the power to move the obstacles that are destroying our liberty and hope.
What do you tell someone that denies God because of all the suffering in the world? I can't tell you the horrible things that I hear every week at the hands of such willing blindness. Devils and men do horrible things in the world, and the atheist blames the God he says doesn't exist. But what do you tell yourself because of all the suffering that you or your loved ones have gone through? Not understanding the big picture causes untold depths of needless despair, anger, fear, and hatred. So I want to look into the greatest human historical record of how men can overcome suffering. The Bible gives us a very clear understanding of our own life journey on earth and why it includes such hardships. It's a picture of exactly what you are going through in the hardest and in the greatest times of your life, and why. It defines and describes the pathway of your entire existence on earth and how men succeed in life and how and why most men needlessly fail. It's an ancient story. God let Israel, His chosen people, live in slavery in Egypt for 400 years to make a point to you and I. The only way we can live a life of blessing here on earth and find eternal life is through the power of faith in God alone. When He took Israel out of Egypt and He led them to the promised land of Canaan, He didn't lead them out the easy and quick way. He led them to the Red Sea and through the wilderness for a reason. Just like He has led you along in your life the way He has, for a positive reason. Satan ruined the journey for the first generation of free Israelites so they couldn't enter the promised land. The devil did it because the nation let him. They didn't understand that the hardness of the way was with the intention of turning them from having a slaves or victims mentality into the heart of champions who could keep the blessings God wanted to give them. You see, God took them out of Egypt, which is a biblical symbol of the captivity of sin. But now, He wanted to take Egypt out of the people. He wanted to lead them on a life journey through some serious wilderness challenges and show them that He was able to keep those that He set free. In present-day terms, the journey we are given with Christ is one in which we are intended to learn this lesson. Are you ready to hear it? He set us free from sin to live as free men, not as those enslaved and needing to be forgiven every day for the same sins. This is called being set apart. For Israel, it started at the Red Sea. Here they were free, but they turned and saw the Pharaoh had changed his mind and wanted to take them captive again. Israel was apparently stuck between this terrible army and the Red Sea. And, listen to this, God led them exactly to this place of challenge in their lives. You brought us here to kill us, they said. It would have been better never to have listened to God and left Egypt, but God had a plan. He wanted them to learn how to lead their enemies to their permanent defeat in the waters of the Red Sea. I can't tell you how many times I've had to learn the lessons of how God delivers me from fear because I was afraid of losing everything that I had in this world. But that fear was keeping me miserable because I didn't realize I was trusting in this world's goods more than in God. They were mastering me instead of Him. I didn't own this world's blessings. They owned me, and the power they had over me kept me from having power over my own sin, my own pride, my fears, depression, anger, and lust. 10 times God tested Israel in the wilderness to see if they would trust Him and live for Him instead of looking at their life challenges and serving the world. For example, when they crossed the Red Sea on dry ground, they soon needed water, but the source they found was like poison. Again, they complained against God, and again, God gave them a miracle and turned the bitter water sweet. Over and over, they were tested and God came through for them, yet they complained and blamed God and Moses. Israel didn't face the fears of the Red Sea and of the bitter water, of the Egyptians and of the lack of food because they were so sinful. They weren't tested 10 times in the wilderness because they still trusted too much in this world. Yes, they had sinned, and yes, they were unholy. But God was establishing the way for them to walk in faith and in holiness and righteousness. That's what faith does. Now, this is important for you to know. The trials they experienced were not because they had failed God. The trials were there to teach them how to walk in faith, to defeat their greatest enemy. How often do we feel that persistent trials seem to come in bunches because of our sin? Yes, trials and defeat can often come because of our unholiness, but the purpose of trials is to bring us to a place of faith and nearness to God. God's primary purpose is not to punish us and make us miserable. He wants to establish His glory and presence in us. He wants us to know that we have the absolute divine right to believe Him for relief in our darkest hours. Numbers 14 marks the end for first-generation Israel, who could not and would not work with God in the process of being set apart. It is a painful process where God gets the world and the mindset of the captive out of the soul of a man. It requires a faith that will not bow to fear. God is shaping the faith of a person to believe only in Him in the face of the giants in the land. I've been on this journey of being set apart, and I can tell you that it is a bittersweet journey, but one into God's glory and presence, which can sweep away the pain. It's filled with hope in the face of disaster and death itself. It's a journey where the devil will contend with you far beyond what your human ability can withstand. Nothing that is of the flesh, of false doctrine, can survive. It's a place where you quickly come to hold to only one word: God's. Men will fill your mind, if they can, with all kinds of theories and false faith. Devils will mask themselves in their assault, and you too will become one of your own greatest enemies as you try to figure it out with your mind. But remember all that God has said and done for you, for it was all for a day such as this. Whenever you think that God has forsaken you because the time of your suffering is long, run from that lie. It's going to take as long as it takes, and on the journey, the presence of God will be your delight, your hope, and your all-sufficient life. Near the end of the journey, the battle must find love if faith hopes to win. You may make the colossal mistake of thinking you can't believe God until you do some good things to make up for all the bad things you did. Listen, there can be no greater restitution than to love. I think if my heart can't believe, it's because I'm not looking at love. The battle must become defined, not by if I can believe enough, but will I love? If I keep my eyes on love, the journey will never fail, for faith isn't merely about what I must do to keep myself. It's about what I must do to ensure that my love remains intact. Keep your eyes on yourself and you will fall. Keep your eyes on the one that you love in Jesus' name, and you will know that love never fails. This too is the perfect love that casts out all fear. When you live to love another, fear has no place to stand against you. We worry so much about what sin may do to us, yet we ought to focus on what it does to another and apply the love that covers a multitude of sins. It is my love for my wife that helps me find power over my own sin nature. You may ask God for faith and peace and victory, and He will ask you, why do you want it? For what will you use it? No greater and more pure motive can a man have to find faith and peace than to use it to love his wife and family. How much compassion must God have for us when He sees us struggle with our broken heart over our many sins and failures? There is nothing like knowing the fierce love of God that will drive a man to his cross for the sake of grace. I turned to grace to find relief, but it was not until I turned to love that I found the deliverance that I sought. Love knows what to do. I sought for peace, but I did not find it until love taught me what to do and what to be. Then peace became the trophy in love's race. Faith wandered relentlessly in the night until love pointed the way to the prize and to finish the race. The heart was made for love, and it cannot succeed in faith until love becomes its foundation and its goal. It seems that Israel's failure to believe and thus win its life tests in the wilderness came because it failed to give its life to God for love's sake. Love will give its life, but faith without love will fail. Fear of the giants will bring God's displeasure, but obedient faith will bring great glory and victory.
You can unlock the presence of God in your life. There are revelation principles that remove the mountains, keeping us from joy, hope, peace, and purpose when our world gets turned upside down. Look for these words that work with Pastor Hardika as he shares what has helped him when life got hard. And don't forget to check out his book, The Fortress and the Firebrand, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Thanks for listening to Life Journeys. Find new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday. And if you're new to this series, it begins with the September 16th episode.
I sought peace, but didn't find it until love taught me what to be. Faith roamed relentlessly in the night until love pointed the way. No greater, more pure motive can a man have to find faith and peace than to love his wife and family. There's no greater restitution than love. It's God's journey of being set apart.